Drivers, how are you doing? New year, new logo, new location to find me. I'm on my own this year, so I will succeed or fail based on my own decisions. I'm going to talk about a few things in this video. Probably going to be a long one, so I suggest you check this on a 2x and listen to it in the background, or just, listen to it when you're on a walk, walking your kid, walking your dog, whatever you want to walk. Feel free to listen to this in the background. I'm going to be talking about a couple things here, talking about my Patreon, talking about the things that are going to remain free on YouTube, which is a lot of things are going to remain free, and then some Xfinity, expectations that I have, and a couple notes, more than a couple notes I've made for the Xfinity series during this off season. And let's get right into it. What is remaining free on YouTube? What is the free content I'm going to keep putting out there for free? Well, the experiment that I ended last year with for the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series in the videos, I was kind of talking. You had a sheet in the background that indicated, the drivers, where they're starting, my ranking as if I saw them an A driver, B driver, C driver, my basic chalk interest of who I thought was going to be chalky, kind of where ownership went through, my interest in, not necessarily my player pool, but my interest in drivers of how I would use them compared to the field, or just people that I liked in general. If I had a high interest, medium interest, low interest, guys that I knew I'd get asked questions of, so I figured I'd put that in there. My projected finish of drivers to where I think they're going to finish, the one that I'm pretty much going to use for my projections, although this might change because I make the video earlier in the week and I make my lineups pretty much the morning before or the evening before. My ceiling for each driver, obviously the ceiling is where, the ceiling of those drivers, how they can finish in the race, whether it's a first place, whether it's a top 10, so forth. But the DNF factor for each driver, whether they have a high chance of DNFing, medium chance, low chance, you get this, if they're sponsored or not, which kind of only you got to worry about for the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series. And a couple notes that I have on the drivers that I think you should look at, and just the things to note there. The things that are going to be behind the paywall on Patreon this year are things that I've kept really close to me over the years, particularly my projections, my own projections that I use to make lineups. I've kept these really close, and I really didn't want to give them out. I really didn't, but we're going to try it this year. We're going to try it out. And I think I said it. I think it's priced accordingly. It's not outrageous. I'll tell you what you get on my full NASCAR package. I do have 3 tiers on Patreon. 2 are pure donations. If you like the free content that I make for you, if I've helped you in the past, if I've helped you this year, if you just like watching me and you want to support me out, I got a $1 and a $3. You can do the $3 and do it for Dale. But that's a thank you and a donation for me. My full NASCAR coverage is $19 for the month, which, let me get through what it has first before you're like, oh, that's outrageous. I can get some guys for $5 a month, blah, blah, blah. Look, my full NASCAR coverage is going to be for the Truck Series, for the Xfinity. Oh, and also, the free content. I'm going to make videos for the Truck Series, Xfinity, and Cup Series each and every week. That's not going to change, all right? Actually, it's increasing because last year I just did the Truck Series and Xfinity. Now I'm doing all 3 series on my YouTube. Anyway, on Patreon, you're going to get my driver projections, and this is for all 3 series. My personal projections I use when I'm making lineups, projected laps led, fast laps, positions gained and lost for all 40 cars in all 3 series. My heat map, highlighting each driver with an easy-to-read page that includes starting position, how I expect the field to use them, and this is going to be made later in the week compared to the video, so this will be a much more accurate projection of where I think chalk's going to be, where I think ownership's going to be. Not necessarily ownership, but a good idea. Like, I'm not going to have 25% ownership, but I'll give you a good chance. If this guy's going to be chalk, this guy's going to be the pivot that most people are going to go to. I'll walk you through it. How many DK points are needed for a driver to hit 5x value, which is what I use for value. Anything other than that, I'm really not interested in. Indicate which drivers are in my player pool for DraftKings and FanDuel, as those are the 2 sites that I played the most of last year, and I think that's where a vast majority of people make lineups for. Continuing on, I'm going to have my cores in there, my 3 favorite drivers to start a lineup with on DraftKings, and my 2 favorite for FanDuel, because I don't think that's making a line. I don't think that's giving a line out, so I think that's a good way to straddle, both sides of not breaking any terms of service anywhere. My favorite single plays on DraftKings, FanDuel, SuperDraft, and Prize Picks. SuperDraft and Prize Picks were things I got questions for last year, and I really didn't play those a whole lot just because it was late in the year. No practice. I really wasn't interested. I just want to get through the year. But I plan on playing those sites as well this year and giving you my favorite plays, at least my one favorite play. I can do that for each one. I figured that would be a great way to start. All these will be given on a PDF file found on Patreon every morning before the race in the event that we know qualifying during the week, and shortly after qualifying in the event that we have real qualifying, people are actually taking a lap. These will be updated based on the news, and I plan on finishing these the day before to guarantee that they're posted every morning, which, like, I got a video out every morning last year for every single race. I was in Discord for DFS Tavern pretty much every morning. I don't see myself not being able to upload any of these, so that's why I'm saying I'm guaranteeing them. I George Foreman guarantee you that they're going to be there on Patreon. But yeah, I just wanted to put out there, and look, I know you're like, $19 a month, that's crazy. Look, on a week where we have 4 weeks, either with 3 to 2 series racing each weekend, I mean, this averages out to about $1.50 a race, $1.80 a race. Sometimes it's excuse me, sometimes it's a bit less than that. I think it's perfectly fine to have my projections, to have everything I'm looking at for each race for right around $1. I mean, look, you can't beat that. Also, race for the prize, Pierce is making his stuff free this year, which is why I don't have a sheet, because that's where I get all my data from. You can check some money his way, support him out, donate to him, donate to me, either support me or whatever you want to do. Figured I'd put that out there for you guys. Now, I'm going to be talking about a PDF in it here. I'll show you part of it real quick on the screen here. So if you look, you can see that I have pretty much all the team names on the left right here. I got 9 pages of notes for you. Figured you'd want to look at it, maybe check it out, support me, and everything like that, Go ahead and support me there. I have it open to all the tiers, so if you want to donate $1 early in January and get the full 9 pages of notes, you can. That would help me out a whole lot. I'll give you this as a thank you. I also plan on making one for the Truck Series and Cup Series. I've actually already started on the Truck Series 1, but figured I'd, walk through some of these notes and talk to you about what I'm seeing here, just to get you guys all ready for the new year. Like I said, I hope you're on 2X. Let's get right into it. I'm not going to talk about everything on here because, like I said, I want you to purchase it, but I'll hit on the main takeaways, the main things I want to highlight. First thing I want to highlight is that we have 4 plate races for the Xfinity Series this year, which I love. Look, remember when the 2 lower series would only have 3 plate races? And I mean, I know I wasn't playing DFS when I was a youngster, but I love plate races. Now that I put money on these and I make money off the plate races, I love them even more. Thank God we're getting 4 plate races. I can take the 7 or however many road courses we have for all the other series this year, if that means we at least get 4 plate races for the Xfinity Series and Cup Series. I think that's an even trade. I hate road courses. I hate watching them, but getting another plate race, I'll happily take. At the time of writing this, there are currently 7 road course races planned for this year for the Xfinity Series. Add the 4 plate races. I mean, you got a third of the season on tracks where we should know what's going to happen. Should, i.e., play guys from the back or expect, very ugly racing, because the Xfinity drivers can't race on the road courses. They can't race on the plate tracks. So if you kind of enter these 2 races with the same mentality of, hey, I'm going to build from the back, or hey, I'm going to really rely on, carnage to happen. If you got a third of the season ready for carnage, I think you can really take advantage of that. With the remaining 23 races on, 1.5 miles or other tracks. I mean, once we get through, obviously we don't have practice for a lot of these races. Once we get through, 3 or 4, we can look at the data from last year. And we can look at the data. My bad. Once we get through 3 or 4 races, we can look at the data that the teams are bringing to us, seeing how the cars are performing this year. To start off the year, I'm going to heavily look at the last, probably about month and a half, 2 months of last year's times that the cars are doing, or that teams are coming. You know what I mean? Gosh, this is why I don't record late at night. I start stumbling over my words and everything. But yeah, I'm gonna use about the last 2 months of data when entering the first mile and a half, which I believe is Homestead, Las Vegas, one of those. We'll figure it out when we get there in February. Looking at the teams now, this is where a lot of my notes have gone, and I mean, I wish the reason I made this is because I wanted to find an article or something that actually gives you good notes, a good idea of what these teams are doing in the offseason. That this should be what Jeff Gluck is doing, but he's not. He's too busy asking people what their favorite type of peanut butter is or what favorite dog they like. They're like, hey, Brett Moffitt, what's your favorite type of snack before you go to bed? Gluck, I don't care. Stop asking 20 questions for stuff that doesn't matter. I want to know, hey, what's your budget for this year? What's the sponsors looking like? What you got planned out? So I'm trying to give the article that I think should be out there that I haven't seen and that I probably won't see because nobody cares about the Xfinity Series. Nobody cares about the Truck Series. That's why my first video of 2021 is on the Xfinity Series because I actually care about this series or I'm interested in it. You know? I get so annoyed at NASCAR, yet I just wrote a 9-page. Actually, I'm going to have about 30 pages of notes, including this. You know, it's ridiculous that I'm doing the job that real journalists should do. But looking at our Motorsports, seeing how fast this team is expanding, I mean, it's really, really concerning because last year they struggled. Like, I don't know how you saw Brett Moffitt in your mind. I know last year during the season, I was like, hey, you know, Brett Moffitt's doing pretty good in the Xfinity Series. I think he's running up well. Every time I'd look at the ticker, he was either in the top 15 or racing with people. You know, his price tag was always in the 8,000. So I was like, you know, he's got to be doing good. Then I let the season end. I came back to it. And this our Motorsports team was not as good as I thought they were. I mean, look, they started the year not planning on running fully last year. It just kind of happened. I mean, Brett Moffitt was getting more out of the car than they expected. They didn't always have sponsors. The equipment always wasn't the best. I mean, look, they did 33 races last year. They had 3 DNFs due to equipment. You know, that wouldn't be as bad, but then you got 6 DNFs due to crashes and only 15 lead lap finishes in those 33 races. And based on how qualifying was, typically Brett Moffitt finished right at or worse than where he started. Brett Moffitt just came down to riding as the first car a lap down or the last car in the lead lap. That's what he would be at the end of the race. He never had, sure, he had 8 top 10 finishes, but he never really carried the speed. If you looked at the speed, you know, most of the time cautions would save his butt, and the races that went green, he would just end up going a lap down. He'd be passed by the field. He was much better on short runs where he could pass people on restarts or on the smaller tracks where he could actually make stuff happen. But once they got spread out and it came down to the equipment that he was in, how fast he was, it wasn't there for him. And now they're going to 2 teams. Yikes, man! I'm nervous about that. I'm really, really nervous about Brett Moffitt this year. SS Greenlight Racing, you know, they have to improve. I mean, last year, the Bogdaner Group was the definition of missed opportunities. All right, so we had one guy who was full-time, and then we had another driver, or another car, rather, that was just a revolving door. And oddly enough, the one with the revolving door did better than the car that had the consistent driver in it. You know, Joe Graff Jr. Joe Graff was just underperforming is an understatement. I mean, this was horrible. He had multiple sponsors last year, fully sponsored, and no matter what happened, he was involved in wrecks. Or he had that woke AF paint scheme that turned into a meme. Anytime you saw that woke AF paint scheme, you're like, oh, I can't play him here. He's going DNF. He's going to wreck. You know, and I can't tell if it's because if he was too aggressive with the plate tracks or he just put himself in bad situations. I mean, no matter what, it just came down to him running 25th everywhere. Currently, we don't have a driver right now, you know, selected for the 07 car. JD Motorsports, you know, I'll leave this for everybody to read about. Junior Motorsports, Michael Annett. This is interesting, and if you saw my Twitter earlier, I sent a picture of what I wrote out. I said, watch out, because 2021 is the year of Michael Annett. Why is this? What am I talking? Brandon, you're absolutely insane. You are sniffing paint. You're eating Tide Pods. I mean, you're crazy. But look here. Michael Annett and the money he brings to the team that returns. However, he had a sneaky good year last year in terms of what he can do in that car, of what his talent provides. Often and late in the season, qualifying order would give him a starting position right inside the top 10, give or take a couple spots. Often his DK price fell in between no man's land. I mean, he was either too expensive to fit in a lineup because you get all your studs that you wanted and, he just couldn't afford him, or you would have to go out of your way to build around Michael Annett. Nobody would ever end up on Michael Annett. None of the projections would ever say, hey, Michael Annett's a great play here, And this would cause him to have stupid low ownership. I'm talking about under 10% ownerships. And so if you look at how he performed, I mean, and this is generally speaking, obviously you can find all the my lap data at racefortheprize.com, but generally speaking, he's an 8th place lap car. I mean, and let's take a step back and look at this field. Look at the series. I mean, this is an embarrassment for the Xfinity series. I mean, we got underfunded teams. We got children that don't care. We have selfish and self-centered drivers who feel the need that they got to prove themselves. They end up fighting each other. They end up wrecking each other. They end up moving each other out of the way. And then we have Michael Annett, middle age. His Cup career didn't really pan out the way he thought it would. He knows where he stands. He's been to the Cup Series. He's raced enough now to know he doesn't have what it takes. And that's not a knock on Michael Annett. I'm not saying anything that you guys don't know there, but he knows his limits and he knows he has the security of his money to keep him in this car. His security. He's basically Paul Menard. I would argue he's the exact same as Paul Menard. That's just how it is. Paul Menard just got an RCR ride. Michael Annett just had an underfunded ride in the Cup Series, but these guys are the same driver. Looking at his speeds in the last half of 2020, we know that he has the speed to fight for the top 5s. He's clean. He takes care of the car. Hold on, I got a cough right here. All right, sorry about that. What was I saying? Oh, yes. Yeah, he's clean. He takes care of the car. I see him carrying speed into the season, and if he stays in the 8s, I don't think he's going to get in the 9s early in the season. He'll probably be in the 9s around maybe March or April. And just how weak this series is. Michael Annett is a sneak play that I want to try and play as much as I can. Maybe not at Daytona, but once we get outside Daytona and outside of the road course, look towards Michael Annett week 3, week 4, week 5 of the Xfinity series here, because I think he is a guy that you want to look at. All right, next up we got good old Justin Allgaier. Come on, Allgaier, here we are. Yet again, I'm probably taking crazy pills over here, but is it ridiculous for me to say that I like Annett going in this year more than I like Allgaier? I'm not crazy here. First and foremost, let's just look at their. I know average finish doesn't really tell anything, but it is something to really look at it, and when you step back away from the year, who had a better year? If you look at Justin Allgaier, average start of 9.3, average finish of 13.4. Then you look at Michael Annett, average start of 9th, average finish of 11.8. Almost 2 positions better than Allgaier. If you look at their 2 races, obviously you got Allgaier getting the wins at Richmond, getting the win at Dover, but other than those, Allgaier was almost more of a win or bust type of guy for DFS. If you registered him, say at Texas late in the year, he wrecked. You can't predict crashes. But looking at Las Vegas, he only led. Las Vegas. He didn't lead. Wait a minute. Hold on. I keep clicking out. Sorry. He didn't lead anything at. Yeah, he didn't lead anything at Las Vegas late in the year. Didn't lead anything at Kansas late in the year. Led 35 laps at Texas, and he got wrecked. Even at Phoenix, led only 76 laps, where this should have been the race that he won. That's him starting the pole, and he could only lead 76 laps. The only laps that he really killed at was Bristol, didn't win it. Richmond, the 2 Richmond races where he dominated those, but everywhere else, at Dover, where he won as well. 98 laps led at Texas early in the year. Other than that, he didn't really do anything crazy other than the short tracks. And even when he led laps like Bristol early in the year, he still got in a wreck. So I would almost rather take the safety of Michael Annett entering the year than hope that I, hop on Allgaier when he's getting lucky, or when he's, that's just how I see it. That's just how I look. I mean, Justin Allgaier is the worst top 5 car I have ever seen. It's crazy that he can just be absolutely atrocious and still be a top 5 contender. It's ridiculous. Looking at the 8 car for Junior Motorsports, we'll see Josh Berry in it for 12 races, Sam Mayer in it every race other than those 12 races. We got Dale Earnhardt Jr. returning this year. I know Junior wanted to run Martinsville, but I don't think the sponsorship schedule is going to allow that. I would imagine that we see Junior at another short track, with him and the whole CTE situation that he's dealing with. So I don't think we're going to see him at a 1.5 mile, even if I know he went to Homestead this last time, but I just don't see it happening for Junior at this point in his career. If he does race anywhere other than a short track, I'm not really interested in it just because I don't think, look, I rag on Junior a lot. The guy can race, but you need to be in a car more to really have that in him. I mean, Junior has so many years of experience, but it still helps if you got that seat time. I'm not interested in Josh Berry. I think he's going to wreck. I think Josh Berry is going to do really, really, really stupid and aggressive things this year. But that's just what I see. Sam, I like Sam a lot. Noah Gragson, look, is he taking over one of the positions in the big 3? Do we still use that? Either way, Noah should be a top 5. I don't got to talk to you about it here. The only thing is that we saw a lot of improvement last year. I'm not sure if it was because of the lack of practice. Noah Gragson seems like a driver who performs better if he just gets to a car instead of overthinking it. I feel like, obviously he just got straight up passed at Texas, but I feel like after watching Noah Gragson really drive the last couple of years is when we have a delay or when strategy is really heavy that really messes with Noah. When Noah could just get out there and race, I think he can do well. Next up, we got Colleague Racing, and I'm just saying this right now, and I'm gonna die on this hill until I'm proven different. I'm ready to take my last stand on this hill, but AJ Allmendinger is the number 2 car in this series this year. I understand he only ran 10 races last year, and he didn't have the best lap speed in those races as well, but let's look at the context. First off, he DNQ'd to open the year. That was a joke. That seems like it was 4 years ago, but it wasn't. Colleague came up with cars that were, they were so low to the ground, they were dragging, stuff was wrong, it was embarrassing, absolutely embarrassing. AJ, because he didn't have any points to rely on, he didn't even race in that. And then because of not starting the first 6 races with COVID, or even after COVID, he didn't have any owner points entering those races post-COVID, and with the lack of qualifying due to this, AJ always had to start in the back. He was always outside the top 30 and top 25. That's just how it was. And each and every week, he would drive through the field. Now, I understand he has to get up to the front and pass. It's going to be different this year, running full-time. He's going to be starting up front. But, look, this is going to bring down his average lap time due to traffic. He had to go through dirty air. This will also bring down his average running position, as it would take him the first stage and a half to get through the field and get to the top 10 each week. Once he's there, pretty much every time he was up there, the camera would talk about him because it'd be like, oh, here's AJ Allmendinger. He started dead last, and you could see that AJ had a good car. It was just that he spent all the time fighting through traffic. He spent all the time, getting up to the front. Let's see how his races went. Martinsville drove to and this is going from the most recent race backwards. Martinsville drove to the front. He's leading, dominating the race. The ghost of Dale Earnhardt shows up and gives him a cut tire. The Roval, he won a wild race after starting 22nd in the rain. Dega, and Daytona got wrecked. Daytona Road finished second. Daytona Road finished fourth. Road America finished second. Indy Road Course finished fourth. Homestead started 38th, finished fourth. Atlanta got lucky and won after starting 38th. Bristol finished 10th after starting 27th. Based on the schedule that we have, almost a third of the series at Talladega, at Daytona, at road courses. I mean, this is an Austin-centric AJ Allmendinger type of seasons, type of schedule. You want to talk about fixing the schedule for Chase Elliott? They're fixing the schedule for Austin and AJ Allmendinger. I mean, this is absolutely insane. And I guarantee you, AJ Allmendinger is going to be near $12,000 2 months after the start of the season. So I would advise you get on this early. You get there before everybody else does, because I don't think people are really considering. I think people are going to consider colleague, stretching their resources too thin. And I understand that. But look, Allgaier said himself, he had fun last year racing. He has a competent team. He has good cars. This is how it's going to be. I mean, we're going to see AJ Allmendinger really, really run for this championship. And that's all I got to say about AJ Allmendinger. This early in the year, I got a lot of expectations for him. And then alongside him, we have Jeb Burton and Justin Haley, but you guys can read about that. Looking at NBA Motorsports, and I've already talked about this in our little video that I posted on Twitter around Christmas time. But look, this team is in trouble. They are up a creek without a paddle. By December, you should have everything laid out. You should have the cars ready. You should be getting everything planned out for Daytona, for this season. You should be getting your budget all squared away. Be like, all right, this is what we're going to do here. This is what I can afford here. Look, they don't even have a budget right now. Their main TV sponsor last year, roofclaims.com, pulled out because they weren't shown on TV enough. That was the reason they gave. They're like, look, this is not worth our investment. We're not getting anything out of here. There's no fans here. There's no fans at the track. Nobody's watching the races on TV. We're better just sending out business cards than sponsoring a team. So they pulled out. So on Christmas, Carl Long posted it out on Facebook looking for money in exchange for a ride. Let me see if I can bring it up here and talk about it. This is the post that Carl Long, if it can load. Here, I'll bring it up on the screen. So here's the whole Carl Long post. Basically, $600,000 gets you a ride. It doesn't matter how you get it. It doesn't matter if you're 45 years old. Doesn't matter if you're a toddler. If you got $650,000, you're racing most likely the 13 car for NBA Motorsports. I mean, and honestly, look, I mean, you can look into this as much as you want. One surprising thing, I'm gonna try not to rant too much right here, but he basically just says all this is tire money, and which is just stupid. There's no reason, a set of tires should be like $2,500. There's absolutely no reason. Like, that is just way too damn high. There's no reason tires need to be that expensive in the racing world, especially if you look back. I forgot who it was. Was it Ned Jarrett? Somebody, I can't remember who it was at the top of my head. Somebody won the Southern 500 running truck tires because they lasted the whole race. If anything, I think that looks better than somebody, I don't know, man. I think tires should last long. I think that should be what we're advertising, not tires that put on good racing. But hey, man, to each their own. Either way, back to what matters is, I mean, MBM is struggling. They need money now. They need money ASAP. It's January. You need to have the budget made. They don't even have a budget right now. I mean, I am worried. Really, really worried about NBA Motorsports. I'm worried about them, because this is not just for the Xfinity series. I mean, this is Roof Claims. They were basically pulling that Cup Series team. If you remember, that 66 car used to run unsponsored pretty much in 2019, 2018. That was an unsponsored vehicle, And Roof Claims was on the was on Timmy's car the vast majority of last year when it wasn't the Hattori group running it, when it was on the 61, and sometimes it'd be on the 13. I mean, that was their sponsor. And if that's not there, I mean, look, I would be absolutely worried about it. All right. Looking at Joe Gibbs Racing here, we're not going to focus on them too much. We'll talk about Daniel Hemrick a little bit. I'll just say that this is so weird. You know, I thought Hemrick was done. I thought he was going to fade off into the sunset like Stephen Wallace or Jamie Dick. Even though Jamie Dick had to stop racing because of medical issues, I thought they would head into the sunset as a name who raced in the Xfinity Series for some time, and then he just faded away. But no, somehow, some way, he ends up at Joe Gibbs Racing. This is by far the best car he's ever had. We'll see what he can do there. I talk about him more in the page. Brandon Jones, we kind of know where he's at. Harrison Burton, look, he should be a top 5 car week in and week out. That's just what he's turned into, especially if you look at the end of last year. That's just what he's come into terms with. Kyle Busch, you know, he's Kyle Busch. Then he got RCR and with Matt Snyder and most likely Anthony Alfredo in the Matt Snyder in the 2 car, Anthony Alfredo in the 21. That's what we're expecting to look at. We might see Kaz Grala. We might see Ty Dillon in the 21 car. I talk about Matt Snyder a bit in there if you want to read about it. Focusing on, we'll talk about Ty Dillon. This is more just speculation than anything right now. Like I said, I think Alfredo's going to be in this car most of the time, Kaz Grala here and there, but it would make a lot of sense for Ty Dillon to come back and run the 21 car for RCR because, look, Ty Dillon has a lot of talent. He just doesn't have the funding to run. Obviously, he doesn't have a car this year to run the Cup Series. But if Ty Dillon would just come down and hop in this RCR car in the Xfinity Series, he could probably dominate. I think RCR has probably the third. I would argue they have the third best car in the Xfinity Series. Just the issue that they have basically rookie drivers in it. But looking all the way back of when Tyler Reddick won the championship for them in this car in the past, if you look through pretty much the entire Xfinity Series, the RCR cars have pretty much always been quick in this series when they had a full-time guy in it back in the 2000s. And I think the way this car's set up right now, the lack of downforce really suits into what RCR is good at. You can see that they're kind of making those strides in the Cup Series as well. It would just make a lot of sense for Ty Dillon to come into this car and just dominate. That's what I would do if I was him. Team Penske, Austin Cindric, top of the class, going to be the guy to beat this year. Moving on, Sam Hunt Racing. Looking forward to Sam Hunt. DGM and the Mario Gosling cars showed speed last year, whether it was Alex Labate, Josh Williams finding the top 10, or the punts in the 90-91 car late in the year. I mean, DGM, this is where you want to be. They're showing improvement. They're getting better. Quick note, talking about Mario Gosling and Cesar Bassarella. Mario Gosling's going to be in the car at Daytona. Now look, he's the team older. He's an older guy. I like him at Daytona. I'm just saying that right now. We'll talk about more about him when we get to Daytona in February. Bassarelli, I love him at the plate tracks. He keeps getting bad luck. He keeps getting in bad situations, but I really like him a lot. RSS Racing. Some stuff to say here, just not really enough to highlight or anything. I mean, we know what those guys are. Tommy Joe Martins, we know where he is at. Mike Harmon Racing. All I just want to say with Mike Harmon right here, outside of obviously what I wrote about them, they're getting better. They got a lot of sponsorship. Not a ton of sponsorship. But they're one of the few teams that they're actually talking about the sponsorships that they're picking up in the offseason. And if they can get their equipment failures under control, which I think is more because they didn't have money to buy new equipment last year and they're just, holding their cars together with duct tape and string, I think we're going to see improvements from Mike Harmon this year. Jeremy Clements, we know where he is at. Jimmy Means, where they're at. And I write about all these guys as well. We're just, not really anything to highlight right now. Riley Herbst in the Stewart-Haas Racing, all I can say, You know, I think he it takes him a while to get going with this team, but once he does get going, he'll be fine. Rick Ware Racing, I'll say this right here is the rumors have been Rick Ware wants to bring in 2 cars this year. All I'll say to that is I like him. I like that idea. And I would argue that these would be 2 of the more higher funded cars in the garage. Now, I know you're like, what? Rick Ware, the guy who has, you know, all the underfunded teams in the Cup Series, he's going to have one of the most funded cars in the Xfinity Series? Yeah, I think so. If you look, all those cars are always sponsored for the Cup Series. The guy has so much money, he doesn't know what to do with it. You know, he has his own plane. He's entering cars in the Indy 500, for God's sakes. He's helped building Indy cars. And you're telling me he's gonna hop into, like, basically, I know the Xfinity Series isn't like a lower level or like a local level of racing, but this guy's going to go from entering Indy cars to running in the Xfinity Series with 2 cars. I mean, just look at how the cars performed last year. I know it was at Martinsville, and I know it was at the Roval in the rain, but those cars were on fire. They were set up well, even with J.J. Yaley and, you know, the other Ware guy in there, and his son, and the other guy with Cody in there. I mean, they still performed well. I like this, man. I got a lot of expectations from that. If you guys would like to read in detail what I have written about all these teams, and I gave you, an overview, but if you want this to look back on or have an idea of what each team has, so you don't have to look it up, because no matter who's in charge of NASCAR media, whether it's Bob Pockrass or Jeff Gluck or what's the other guy's name? I just went blank. I mean, basically NASCAR media sucks, and nobody's going to waste their time writing this. If you guys do want some good articles, Toby Christie is about the only competent team out there. And, well, that's kind of harsh. TobyChristie.com produces a lot of good articles. Just good little tidbits. I mean, and it's not being covered by any of the big stream outlets out there. So that's where I would go if you guys would like to read anything. That's probably the thing I want to look at. I got a Truck Series video just like this one and a Cup Series video planned for January. And then a couple other videos. I know Pierce and I are wanting to record a few things here and there this year. We might be doing some stuff during the season. Kind of staying quiet about that because I don't know how it's going to go. But I'm looking forward to this year. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully everybody had a good year. And yet again, you can find this as a pretty much as a thank you if you support my stuff on Patreon. $1 can get you this, and normally that's just a donation. I figured I'd put this on there to, at least give you a little reward for a donation if you want to do that. And thank you guys for listening. We'll chat to you later. Also, one more thing. If you're listening and you're still listening, the I've Got Balls 400 this Sunday. STN. I'll be running the Brandon Cruz Race the Prize SocialStudiesGames.net Monte Carlo and the 9th running of this event. I'll also be a commentator for the 4 heat races on this Friday and Saturday there on STN. And other than that, you guys have a great time. Talk to you later.